Hello and welcome back to the Master Division of the International Championship. After only finishing third in my last four-player game, I am still the second position, but if I want to advance to the Grandmaster Division, I still need to catch Fanta Black, who is at the moment 4 points ahead of me. And in the game that we are seeing today, I'm playing against Marta Pecheur, another player who is still in striking distance to Fanta Black, and then Lcfyx and Lech, who are at the bottom of the table. So for both of them, it could be a very important game to ideally avoid relegation at the end of the season. And now, without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. I'm playing in the last position in this game, and first of all, as always, we are going to take a look at the leaders and wonders. In H3 there's actually quite some theater synergy. Marlene Dietrich, Fleming, Chaplin and the Hollywood are there, but not that much in H2. No Bach, no Gaudi, no Shakespeare or no Darwin. Then we also have Einstein and Steve Jobs, so developing some technologies could be strong. There's no space flight, however, but the Manhattan Project. And then we have also Churchill and the Manhattan Project for the military. In H2 there is some colonization payoff. There's the Suez Canal and James Cook. Maria Theresa can also be a nice colonization leader, but there's no ocean liner service for her in the game. There's James Watt, but no railroad. We have three military action leaders with Robespierre, Catherine, and Napoleon, and then also Nobel as a just very solid or very strong leader. In H1 we have both Silk Road and Universitas, we have the Great Wall but no Medici Castle, and the Forbidden City but no St. Peter's Basilica. We have both Gutenberg and Leonardo da Vinci for some lab and printing press synergy. We have one military action leader with Jan Žižka, Genghis Khan and Nostradamus to help with the strength, Saladin as a very solid leader, and Eleanor, who maybe can help to set up a colonization game. Marta Pecheur is playing in first position. He decides to just take the engineering genius here. Lech will then just go for the pyramids, isn't willing to go for the Acropolis plus a yellow card or something, which I guess in 4-player games is the right call. Lcfyx goes for Hippocrates, and he is willing to take the Acropolis. Could have also taken a yellow card, maybe hoping for one of the other wonders, but it's still at least a very cheap wonder. You get some benefits out of it, so he decides to go for the Acropolis here. Now it's my turn, and I think it's relatively clear what I want to do here. I have not that many leaders and wonders to choose from, and I think the best pick here is just to go for Boudica. She's a very strong leader in 4-player games, and then I can take her together with one of those urban growths. Now I have to decide which one of those urban growths I have to take, and I don't think it's a very influential decision, but I decided to take a right one because that means that this copy of urban growth will be on the discard spot on Marta Pecheur's turn, so in case Lech goes for a turn where he has a civil action left over, maybe if there's no fitting leader for him on the row, then he doesn't have an urban growth to choose from, which is maybe the HA yellow card that he would like to have the most. So that was my pick. It's also a bit awkward for Marta Pecheur now, because all Hanging Gardens and Alex are both staying on 2 civil actions, so he might have some difficulty spending his civil actions effectively, potentially. But he gets a little bit of help here. Both Confucius and Hammurabi fall down to 2 civil actions, and now he can just go for Hammurabi, which I think is actually quite strong for him now. That means that now for Lech, the leaders will stay on 2 civil actions. He chooses to go for Confucius here, builds a mine, gets the science going, the resource going. I think that's probably the correct decision. Lcfyx elects Hippocrates, builds a mine, increases his population, and then takes the rich land, interestingly, over frugality and stockpile. At this point, he doesn't know for certain whether he will nicely be able to use it, so I maybe would have preferred one of those other cards, but it's still a resource, and if he manages to get some farm or mine upgrades going at some point. Now it's my turn. I will elect Boudica, and from the HA wonders to choose from, I think Stonehenge for 1 civil action should be the best pick here. I maybe have to consider if I want to take none of those HA wonders, as the Great Wall is coming down the road. There's also the chance that an Universitas or Silk Road could be revealed, which I could take as a first wonder. Also Forbidden City could be interesting. So it maybe could be a position where it also could be fine to just skip the HA wonder, but then I would give Marta Pecheur the Stonehenge, and I do think Hammurabi and Stonehenge is quite a strong combination, and also I would have to spend a civil action then probably on taking the stockpile, which is not that ideal. So at the end I just took the Stonehenge. I can spend my civil actions and I have a very solid wonder. With taking the Stonehenge, I decide to not build the second lab first, instead starting with the third mine, as I have now a bunch of additional science and maybe need the resources more than the additional science that I could have gotten out of building the lab first. I draw 2 colonization cards actually. Martin builds the second lab, takes the warfare for 2 civil actions and a Ridgeland. He doesn't take any of those HA wonders, so he probably is eyeing that Great Wall, which is a bit expensive and maybe doesn't help to snowball in the early game, but has a lot of potential later on in the game. But of course he also can hope to maybe get Universitas or Silk Road potentially. Maybe not ideal spending 4 civil actions in warfare on Ridgeland, but both are cards that he might be able to use eventually. Now it's Lech's turn, he starts seeding, the development of science is revealed, he takes the iron and then builds a step of the pyramids to get out of corruption, maybe at the next turn can either finish the pyramids or already start some iron upgrades. Then it's Lcfyx's turn and he goes for a very interesting turn here. As you can see, he takes the cartography for 3 civil actions and then also takes Eleanor, and with that of course he has a very clear goal and sets himself up for a very specific playstyle, because he is probably now aiming to go for a lot of colonies and ideally get maybe the Suez Canal and maybe also James Cook going. And yeah, I mean, with Eleanor he will draw more cards, he has higher chances to draw some colonies and colonization cards, he will get a colonization bonus. But it's of course also expensive, spending 3 civil actions in the cartography, so it's an interesting move. And let's see how it will pay off for him. At least he has now a leader in hand, so after collecting the second token at the next turn, maybe he can already just go for Eleanor. I also think that maybe he has already 1, who knows, even 2 colonies in hand, which could also make it even more viable to go for this particular setup here. Now it's my turn. I decide to actually take a resource from Boudica. It doesn't really allow me to build an additional step or something. I just thought that maybe also after the development of science was revealed that maybe resources are potentially more valuable for me, and there's also one specific reason why I wanted to have the resource here, which we can maybe see at the end of my turn. I will first of all start by taking the swordsman. I haven't drawn a tactic yet, but just getting a military technology for 1 civil action is, I think, quite strong, and especially with Boudica it can be good to maybe have a military technology in hand, so that at the point when you get the additional 2 resources for the military out of her, you have an efficient way of spending them. Then I will build a second lab and build a step of the Stonehenge, then I just increase my population. Don't really want to take any of those cards for 2 civil actions. I don't want to go for Genghis Khan without a fitting tactic, so I don't have really that many options to choose from, and so I just spend a lot of civil actions in my civilization. And now that I have taken the resource, I might at the next turn have the option to again take a resource from Boudica, which would allow me to just finish the Stonehenge, which gets me out of corruption and also just as a way of spending my civil actions efficiently in case there isn't the most exciting stuff on the row. I draw 2 cards and funnily I draw another 2 colonization cards. I'm not sure if I had that already. The first 4 draws in the game, all being defense cards. So those defense cards won't be available for Lcfyx to win colonies, that's certain of, unless they get reshuffled, I guess. Martin has Hammurabi and with that is willing to take the monarchy for expensive here. It will be interesting to see if he plans on doing a revolution or if he just wants to develop it peacefully at the next turn. And then he also goes for the Great Wall. The Forbidden City maybe also could have been an interesting grab for him here, but he doesn't have the civil actions for it, and the Great Wall on the long run might still be a very interesting wonder. Lech seeds, the development of trade routes are revealed. He will finish the pyramids, so doesn't go for iron upgrades first, instead wants to build a wonder and get a civil action. But with the reserves, maybe he can even go for 2 iron upgrades potentially at the next turn, or 1 iron upgrade in building the second lab. Lcfyx seeds opens the development of civil life, will use the development to develop the cartography for free with a 1 science discount, replaces Hippocrates, isn't waiting for the 3rd token, which is probably the correct call, and then he just builds the second lab, increases population twice and takes the breakthrough. Now it is my turn, and this turn was a bit of a difficult decision. And you can see that I end up actually taking the Code of Laws here for 3 civil actions, which is expensive. I also this turn took a food from Boudica, a science from Boudica, because otherwise I would have had some corruption issues. But I have some different lines here, I would say. Instead of the Code of Laws, I actually thought about, like in the other 4-player game, Going for printing press and Leonardo. I could take Leonardo, elect him, take a printing press, develop it, and build one. I would go up to 4 science production. The thing is, this copy of Code of Laws is likely taken away, and then there's 1 copy of Code of Laws, 1 copy of Monarchy left, and I have good science production plus the Stonehenge, but I might not have a good way to invest the science in a nice manner in the short term, so it didn't feel that ideal for me, even though I certainly considered it here. But also when we take a look at the H2 leaders, there's not that much printing press synergy there. Of course I get Leonardo for some synergy for now, but there's no Shakespeare, no Darwin, no Anthony Gaudi. There's Fleming in the Hollywood in H3, so maybe it could pay off, but I also went very early into consumption, so in contrast to the game that we've seen before, where I had Ashoka, started with some irrigation upgrades, I think in this game it could be quite a commitment to put a population into a printing press instead of, for example, into the military. I could also just finish the Stonehenge, spend my actions efficiently, and then maybe take a card. I could just take Leonardo, hoping to get Alchemy later on. I maybe could take the Drama, but probably not, as there's not much synergy in the game. I could just develop the Swordsman already. I could do some stuff. But then I thought it's expensive to take the Code of Laws here, but I just know for certain that I can invest some science of the Stonehenge nicely, and I have more civil actions than maybe in one of the following turns. And yeah, it's expensive, I wasn't certain, but it just feels quite good if you are out of the 4 civil actions and can increase that number to 5. And then with taking a science from Boudica, I can build a step of the Stonehenge to get out of corruption. I draw 2 more cards, another colonization card. Now, out of the first 6 draws, I have already seen 5 out of those. Martin uses the development of civil life to develop the monarchy, and that is actually relevant only because of that additional civil action from the development of civil life that he could use to develop it. He has enough civil actions to finish the Great Wall, and afterwards he has still 1 left from the monarchy and 1 left from Hammurabi, allowing him to take the Forbidden City. So he will have 2 strong H1 wonders. Great Wall not doing that much for him now, but soon when the event deck will flip, certainly will be a help for him. Lech seeds and opens the development of warfare, can take the free warrior, is willing to take Saladin for 2 civil actions here. Maybe also for him, Leonardo and printing press could have been an option with him having not committed to the 2nd lab yet, but he rather wants to get Saladin, wants to get even more civil actions going, takes the Universitas for some additional science instead, and then starts with going for 1 iron upgrade. Lcfyx seeds with Eleanor, gets some draws, the development of markets are revealed, he decides to take 2 resources from them, finishes the Acropolis, takes the irrigation, and interestingly the theocracy. He can develop the theocracy for cheap with the Acropolis, and I mean the 3rd military action might be quite helpful for him. Also the strength and happy face, maybe to defend himself in case he's sending some units away, because the problem in 4-player games, if you are wanting to go for a lot of colonies, is that if those aren't revealed at the right time, there's the chance that if you send some units away, you are in danger of aggressions. But if you of course have more strength and maybe also the ability to put another worker into the military thanks to the happy face, maybe the chances are increased that you're actually able to win those colonies. On the other hand, you are now stuck on a government form that only doesn't increase your civil action count, so we'll have to see how that works out for him. Irrigation also can be important in a colonization game, because if you are not going for vast or inhabited territory, you definitely need some food production to get those workers back. I can take the free warrior at my turn, and then I get again a science from Boudica, so that after finishing the Stonehenge and developing the monarchy, I will be on 5 science at the next turn, because at the next turn it certainly could happen that I get the additional military resource from Boudica with the event deck being about to flip. So I took a science from her now, so that I maybe at the next turn have the option to get into iron in case one of those 2 copies will be available for me. This turn I decided to go for the monarchy here. I will then be at 6 civil and 3 military actions, and I, thanks to the Stonehenge and the additional science from Boudica, as said, still have enough science left to go for something like alchemy or iron and also upgrade a bit of my economy. So it felt quite good being now at that civil action count, and then with the last civil action I have to get out of corruption, so I increase my population. If my opponent seed a lot, there's a chance that I might get hit by strength events, but that is a risk that I was willing to take here. Sadly, I don't draw an infantry tactic yet. Martin seeds, the development of religion is revealed, which he doesn't take. He instead wants to take the free warrior, and I guess with the Forbidden City and the happy face from the Great Wall, he doesn't really need a happy face from the free religion. He takes a copy of Iron, the swordsman for the Great Wall, and also a rich land, so if he finds the science and civil actions to get into the Iron, he might be able to go for those upgrades very quickly. Could actually go for 3 upgrades already at the next turn. Now it's Lech's turn, he seeds. I was afraid that there might be a strength event revealed, but luckily for me I don't get hit by anything. Instead, the Confucius event is revealed, giving every player additional science. Lech has enough resources to finish the Universitas this turn, takes the Code of Laws and develops it, so he really wants to go for a lot of civil actions. He's already playing at 7 now, and then increases his population. Will drop down to 6 civil actions now though, as he takes the strength from Saladin, maybe to not be in danger of an aggression, and of course also not to be weakest for the strength events. Lcfyx seeds again, and luckily it's again no strength event, but as you can see I'm actually able to win this colony here. But I win it for a price where it's maybe somewhat questionable if it's even worth winning for me, because I will send both warriors away. And yeah, I'm not sure if it's the right call to bid 2 warriors on this. On the other hand, I have now a colony. I can maybe compete for the Suez Canal. And yeah, nonetheless, it feels a bit expensive, but I get some draws. Maybe I get an infantry tactic or generally a tactic that I can use. I'm also completely out of warriors for now. Of course, I will rebuild 1. But I might get some back. Also, Lcfyx has already revealed the medieval army tactic. If I get knights and then with rebuilding 1 warrior now, maybe there's a chance I can get into knights at the next turn, and then go for the medieval army tactic. So it's quite expensive, but maybe it could still be somewhat worth it, but I'm not sure looking back at it if it was really worth it sending away 2 units here. On the other hand, in a game with such colonization payoff later on, it certainly can be worthwhile sometimes to pay somewhat unreasonable prices for colonies. Lcfyx starts with going for some food upgrades and then develops the theocracy. Doesn't take the iron here, so I have now the chance to get into it. If it wouldn't have been available, I could have just gone into alchemy, and of course even now I can still consider going into alchemy. It's the decision here, do I want to go into alchemy or iron? First of all, I will use the additional military resource from Boudica to build a warrior. With my 3 military actions, I'm not in danger of any aggression. Yeah, and then as said, it's the question of going into iron or alchemy. I want to go for some upgrades here, but one thing that I also certainly want to do is going for Nostradamus here and also electing him. With that, I'm now definitely not in danger of an aggression any longer. I'm not in danger of potential strength events. I have some events in hand and I can actually keep a lot of them, as I don't need the aggression, also don't really need the heavy cavalry, so I can keep some events. I know that I can seed a lot, and I will also get some event knowledge from now on. The strength I think is very helpful now that I sent 2 units away, so I certainly wanted to go for Nostradamus here, and then I have 4 civil actions left, which is just enough to either go for 2 iron or 2 alchemy upgrades. And I do think iron is the better choice here. Alchemy still could be fine, but I have my government form already, which I think is a very relevant factor, and then I think maybe just setting some iron upgrades is a bit better. I can go for those upgrades, and then maybe at some point during H2 going for scientific methods, maybe go for the Harvard College, who knows, maybe I could even go for the Silk Road at the next turn for some additional science. So I do think this position with having the government form already set up and having already produced a lot of science with the Stonehenge and Boudica, it's maybe better to get the resource production up now. At the end of my turn, will actually, I first thought I probably want to reveal the phalanx tactic maybe already, but then I thought with the amount of population that I'm having available at the moment, it will probably take quite a while until I actually get 2 more workers out. So instead I just copied the medieval army tactic from Lcfyx, meaning that if I should get one of the copies of knights, all 3 of them are actually still in the deck. I just need 1 more unit, and then I have hopefully a somewhat reasonable strength together with the strength from the strategic territory and Nostradamus. And then I actually just kept all 3 events in hand. Matapesher seeds. With Nostradamus I actually see what he seeds, and it's the immigration, which I was somewhat happy to see, because at the moment I'm actually Yeah, I'm actually together with Lcfyx, one of the players with the most happy face. So interesting that Matapesher is willing to put it into the deck, but he is strongest, and we also see that he gets rewarded immediately. The border conflict is revealed, and yeah, but with the Forbidden City, he has to expect that maybe one of his opponents will win it, or he has to do some unnecessary investments into the happy faces if he wants to make sure that he is part of that event. He for now starts going for some upgrades, takes the masonry, the alchemy, increases his population, plays the fighting band tactic, builds another warrior, and thanks to the Great Wall is now at 10 strength and has just enough resources to finish the Forbidden City at the next turn. Lech got hit by the border conflict, lost one of his bronze mines, goes for the knights now, builds one, doesn't have the military actions to copy the medieval army tactic. Let's see if he has a tactic of his own. He takes some yellow cards, increases his population, and he can't copy a tactic yet, so he needs to take the strength from Saladin again. But even with taking that strength, he, with only having 2 military actions, is certainly in danger of an aggression, especially I have that knowledge that a lot of defense cards are already out. Lcfyx seeds, he puts the vast territory into the deck, so there's a very strong colony coming. The barbarians are revealed, which hits Lcfyx. I was happy to see that, of course, and he loses the religion now. He doesn't really need it that much for now, so it's understandable, but with my knowledge that immigration is coming, I was certainly happy to see that for now he has lost that happy face. He is willing to take a copy of knights as well for 2 civil actions, increases his population, builds one going up to 9 strength. Now it's my turn. I start seeding the good harvest. I don't have any increased food production, but I just, after sending 2 units away for the strategic territory, I'm very low in population. I thought the additional food could end up being very worthwhile for me. So I push, the developed territory is revealed, I just pass. I think I can't afford sending another unit away, and at the end Lcfyx this time is able to win the colony for very cheap, only 1 warrior he needs to send away. This turn I will go for the Silk Road. I just think I have to invest my civil actions into something. If I just upgrade my mine, I could then of course take the knights, which I will do now as well. But what do I do then? I could take the engineering genius, maybe the urban growth, maybe the alchemy, but it just all doesn't feel that great. I rather want to get the Silk Road here, and then maybe instead of alchemy go into scientific method in H2. I even thought about just maybe playing it a bit greedily, instead of taking the knights, maybe just building 4 steps of the Silk Road, but maybe I got stopped from being greedy here by that actually causing corruption, because it just takes too many blue tokens. I actually lose blue tokens when I build that many steps, with having some blue tokens lying around on iron, so that's not really an option, and with that I just went for the safe play here, went for the knights. My first thought was to go for an upgrade now and build a step of the Silk Road, getting that last upgrade going and still having enough resource to finish the Silk Road. But then I wouldn't have enough resources to finish the Silk Road and build a knight. And because of that, I at the end delayed the upgrade and instead built 2 steps of the Silk Road, because I thought at the next turn it's probably worth it to build 1 knight, and then I don't want to delay the Silk Road even longer. I do think the additional science is now more valuable for me than this 1 last upgrade from the iron mine. Also, I would be prepared to even take maybe a new wonder if there's like something like Harvard College in the row, or maybe even the Suez Canal if I get a strong H2 colony. So I just thought I want to finish the Silk Road next turn, ideally if there's nothing too important, but I also want to go for a knight, and that's not possible if I upgrade my last mine now. As you can see, I am actually in danger of an aggression here from Matapesher, also even after my turn, but I just couldn't do that much about it. And also, again, when we remember Lech's position, he is even more vulnerable. So I thought if Matapesher is actually trying an aggression, then it's probably against Lech. I have sent a lot of colonization cards away, but I also immediately got some new draws out of the strategic territory. I have 3 military actions, now again got 3 draws, and Lech would need 2 defense cards. So I thought that Matapesher, if he tries an aggression, it will hopefully be against Lech, and so I was hoping that I won't get punished for being a bit weak here. H2 starts. We see here Lcfyx does actually discard that Ridgeland A, and that's why I oftentimes just don't like taking that much. And the Frugality, for example, he just would have been able to use for certain, but the Ridgeland is now discarded. Matapesher is actually going for an aggression, luckily not against me. Instead, Lech gets hit and he loses a population while Matar gets some additional food and resources. Unfortunately for him, the food is for now just... he's now stuck with the 3 food, but not forever, because the good harvest is coming that I've seeded, so then he might actually get a new population out. He finishes the Forbidden City with the masonry, goes actually for Gutenberg. I first thought he might want to go for Jan Žižka here, maybe going for some more pressure. At some point maybe can also go for the swordsman, go for a bit of a military heavy play, but he decides to go for Gutenberg, who can work nicely as a transitional leader. The next gen he can develop the alchemy, can go for some extremely cheap upgrades with the masonry and the Gutenberg discount, and he can just do that on top of just doing all the other stuff that he wants to do. I guess he doesn't have a lot of science to go for anything else then, but I can definitely see the Gutenberg pick here, but with not having taken a very close look at his turn, I thought first that he might go for Jan Žižka here, putting even more pressure on us, but he goes for the Gutenberg line here. And actually can use Gutenberg also already this turn, taking the printing press. Maybe not necessarily to build one of those, but just maybe to get a 2 culture, and I mean he still has it available as an option. Could of course also cause some hand space issues, let's see if that will be the case. In the last few turns, Lech just always took the strength from Saladin, and in such a situation of course Nobel is a much better leader. He gives 2 strength and 2 science production. Generally he is a very strong leader early in age 2, so Lech goes for Nobel here, upgrades a mine, isn't willing to commit to another mine yet, instead maybe wants to have the population around to build another knight potentially. And also I think I forgot to talk, no actually not, I haven't forgotten to talk about a seed, as neither Martin nor Lech has seeded an event, but Lcfyx will now seed, and he seeds the wealthy territory 1, so there are 2 colonies coming. At least 2 colonies. I have knowledge about 4 out of the 6 events. Those are Immigration, Vast Territory 1, Good Harvest, and Wealthy Territory 1. Lcfyx increases his population, builds a knight going up to 10 strength, having a unit also that he maybe can send away for colonization, takes the wave of nationalism and a breakthrough. Doesn't take the cannons, interestingly, but maybe the wave will be very useful for him to rebuild some units. I'm actually the weakest here, so I could consider not pushing, but the 4 events that I just named you that I have knowledge about are all no strength events, so I was not too much afraid, and then just seeded a cultural influence in, with now having the Silk Road that hopefully should turn out to be a solid event for me. There's actually another colony, a 3rd one in the deck, the Inhabited Territory, and Lcfyx is able to win it, but he has to send an army away, so that's somewhat expensive, and now the wave of nationalism I think will be very useful for him. I certainly take the cannons here, not taking that when it's available for 1 civil action, I think would just be a crime. Then I also finished the Silk Road, and I first thought, okay, I will go for the knights, especially before seeding. I thought I will go for the knights, increase my population, build a knight. But now that first of all Lcfyx got weaker, and also the event being revealed being one that I didn't have knowledge about, so there's only 1 unknown event left. I know that the events that I have knowledge about are no strength events, and for the moment I'm not even the weakest. And so I decided to go for I decided to not go for the knights yet. Instead, delaying this commitment so that I can get some draws going. Maybe I draw a tactic where I don't need the knights, so I can make a more informed decision maybe later on. It would be quite bad, for example, if I go for that knight now and then I draw the fortifications tactic or the defensive army tactic. So I decided to delay my commitment here, which also gives me the opportunity to go for an iron upgrade. I increased my population here. The cultural heritage with the Silk Road bonus could have been a very interesting card for me to take. But I think I didn't have knowledge about both Pestilence and Rats, and so I just really wanted to get that population increase going, because if I lose another population it would be quite bad actually for me. And so that's my turn. Of course I'm also again in danger of an aggression from Artar, but he doesn't have that many cards in hand, and if he has actually an aggression, he also might consider going against Lcfyx, who just sent some units away for the colonization, for a colony. Maybe it looks like he didn't have colonization cards available to just send a knight away, so certainly could be that he doesn't have enough. So I thought, again, there's maybe an opponent that's even more vulnerable than me. Also I get 3 draws, so I have a chance of just drawing a defense card. And I certainly was a bit relieved to just see the defense card here. I felt a lot safer now. Martha Bescher, interestingly, is willing to take the Harvard College here for expensive. I wonder that maybe also some of the others would have liked, maybe especially I. And Martha Bescher is the Masonry, and he will actually use the Masonry to build 2 steps already. Unfortunately for him, it's not enough for him to get out of corruption, so it's interesting that he's willing to take the Harvard College despite having corruption. But of course, it's also the case that one of that corruption is actually food, so he's basically only losing 1 resource, and with being at 6 resources at the next turn, he has just enough to finish the Harvard College and to go for 1 upgrade from philosophies to alchemies for 1 resource with Gutenberg. And then he has some very solid science production going. Lech seeds, and I do get a bit lucky here. I'm the only one winning the immigration. The population is actually extremely useful for me, but not only that, we can see that despite the immigration being revealed, Lech, at the end of his turn, after taking the organized religion, the breakthrough in the cultural heritage, will actually still go for the organized religion, so he probably would have done the same, or even more likely done the same, and there wouldn't have been a happy face related event revealed, so it's very fortunate for me that the immigration is now already out, because now Lech would have been the winner of that, so certainly a lucky timing for me. Lcfyx seeds, and of course I have also seen what my opponent seeded. Lech seeded the new deposits, where Lcfyx seeds even another colony, so Eleanor has actually managed to find him a lot of colonies. He seeds the historic territory 1, and one of the other colonies that he seeded is revealed, the wealthy territory 1, and he again is able to win it, sending his last unit away. Is now actually completely without units, but has now a bunch of colonies, so his colonization plan could actually really pay off. And we can also see that he will also go for James Cook this turn, getting a bunch of cultural production, being able to use some of his cards also to help with the colonization. The biggest colony, maybe the vast territory 1, is still coming, and then he is rebuilding some units, however without a wave of nationalism. Maybe he didn't find the civil actions to do it, or just really wanted to take those cards. And no, I mean, he is also a bit running away with the culture now. Thanks to Nostradamus culture, I can actually keep up with him a little bit. For me, it's now the question, what do I want to seed? I have only strength events in hand. Of course, I could also not seed at all. But at the end, I decided to go for the international negotiations, because the 3 H1 events that have been seeded so far are, again, no strength events. And I just thought, probably I still need some time to set up my strength. If I see something like Crusades and Uncertain Borders, it could just end up being revealed a little bit too early for me. While with seeding an H2 event, the international negotiations, I have a bit more time setting up some strength. And with that, I was willing to put that into the deck. Of course, it can backfire, but I have some time, I have knowledge about it, and can then hopefully find a way to at least not be the weakest. The pestilence is revealed, so I lose the population immediately again that I got from the immigration. So basically, because people are happy in my country, people from other countries immigrated into my country, but then they immediately got sick. So not a nice story, I guess, but yeah, that's what happened. And now, as you can see, I will go for the selective breeding here. The thing is that one of the 2 remaining events here is the Good Harvest, and I just thought it's too much value, especially with me being on low population now again after getting hit by the pestilence, to go for 1 food upgrade and then get quite a big amount of food out of the Good Harvest. I just thought I kinda have to do that. It means that I don't take those riflemen, but at least I have the swordsman in hand, so if I draw a tactic like defensive army, Napoleonic army or something, I can just use the swordsman, even though of course I would like to have the rifleman for H3 tactics. I can go for 1 upgrade, and then with my last civil action I will take the rich land. With the Silk Road bonus I can now go for another farm upgrade for completely free. I draw some cards, and I was very happy to see that I do actually draw the defensive army tactic. We can see here that not committing to the knights early on has paid off quite heavily now. Now I didn't have spent the science and resources and population on that knight already. Instead I can now just going for swordsmen or cannons and then maybe go for the tactic. Especially also with having now seeded a strength event, I was quite happy to see that I have the tactic available even more so now that I saw Martha Bescher actually seeding the Cold War in. So another big strength event will be coming, and it certainly will be worthwhile trying to compete for those events. The Good Harvest is revealed, so I immediately get some additional food. Montabescher, then, as said at the turn before, can finish the Harvard College, has now 1 resource left, which he can use to go for 1 more upgrade to Alchemy with Gutenberg, takes the Selective Breeding, takes the Rifleman, and then takes the Reserves, which he potentially can also use to go for another population. Lech seeds, opens the vast territory, Lcfyx is able to win it for Knight and a colonization card, which is interesting, because I guess maybe the other cards are just very valuable, because I had remembered that he had a lot of cards in hand, but of course he didn't draw any new one, could only keep 3 because he has rebuilt a lot of units, so yeah, he maybe wants to keep those cards, just sends a colonization card away, and has now actually a very, very big yellow bank. Will actually needs to destroy something, which is a bit annoying, but has now his 4th colony. Cook is producing him 5 culture per turn, and if he also gets the Suez Canal, his setup could certainly explode. So if he now just manages to defend himself and somehow can secure getting the Suez Canal and actually finishing it in a reasonable time, then he, maybe his gamble or maybe his setup with taking cartography for 3 and Eleanor might actually pay off very nicely. Montabescher has actually gotten a bit weaker because he decided to lose a warrior to the pestilence. Lech continues the theme that he had in this game with just having a lot of civil actions. He goes for the Republic here. Will now be at 9 civil actions, so that's really a lot, and he can take the strategy together with it so that he also soon has more military actions, takes the cannons as well, and then increases his population twice, builds a knight, is now the strongest, and actually Lech also has seeded an event in there, and the event that he seeded was also an H2 event, and it was the refugees. So Nostradamus is giving me some very important knowledge, because I know that the next 3 events are peaceful, but as soon as those H2 events are revealed, there will be the refugees, Cold War, and the international negotiations coming, so my main priority from now on should just be to build as much strength as possible so that I hopefully can prepare myself for those events. Lcfyx this time doesn't see it. Instead, he increases his population, builds a warrior, builds a knight, builds actually a 3rd lab with the urban growth, but I guess he has more than enough yellow tokens for it. Maybe rather the civil actions are a bit of a limiting factor potentially. It's my turn. I again seed. I mean, I know now that I want to prepare myself for strength anyway. And if I am setting up myself for strength, now that I'm also having the tactic, I can of course just start seeding now those H1 strength events. So after those very big H2 strength events, there is now also the uncertain borders coming, because I was thinking I have chances to maybe be one of the strongest, so I wanted to have an event in there that also rewards that quite heavily. The cultural influence is revealed, which gives me more than Montabescher and Lech, but Lcfyx with having Cook gets the most out of it. I go for the swordsman this turn. I first thought about just building 1 cannon, but the H2 ones could even be revealed before my next turn, and just going for a lot of swordsmen just gives me more strength. And so I decided to go for that, even though going for the cannons could be nice in the sense that if I maybe draw the fortifications tactic, that could even be better for me than the defensive army tactic. Also, when we consider that I now soon will reveal the defensive army tactic for Montabescher. So I build a swordsman, I build another swordsman, I upgrade another swordsman, so I know now that even if Montabescher seeds, Lech seeds, and Lcfyx seeds at Lcfyx turn, I will at least not be the weakest. Hopefully I get a bit more time to prepare for those events, but now I know now that before my next turn I at least won't lose any of those events unless there's something like Promise of Military Protection. Then of course I can also use the Ridgeland with the Silk Road bonus to upgrade this farm for free. And then I have 3 civil actions left. I think I kinda have to take the Organized Religion here. I soon will need the Happy Face solution. There's also no Pierre in the game. I have a free religion, so I do think that's a perfectly fine way to fix my happy faces. I thought then about taking both the frugality and the patriotism, but I also felt like I maybe overextend a little bit here, and maybe I also should increase my population already once. Not increasing my population at all could benefit me in case I still get Maria Theresa. She was the leader that I at this point was maybe eyeing the most. Catherine could be fine. James Watt could be great if I maybe get an early oil, but it would be a bit of a gamble, but Maria Theresa might just be very valuable, so I could maybe just take Patriotism and Frugality. But I felt like I'm just too much in a civil action death. I still need to take the leader, maybe even for expensive, to secure that I get the leader that I want. And so instead I increased my population already once this turn, and then also took the Frugality. I could have also taken the Patriotism, which is of course a nice synergy with the Silk Road, but the thing is, one of the H1 events that are still coming is the new deposits, and with that I thought that maybe I don't need the additional resource as much. Getting more draws is nice, but I have enough military actions to build up the strength that I need. And so I rather wanted to have the Frugality, especially with having in mind that maybe my plan is to go for Maria Theresa. At the end of my turn I also make an interesting call about the cards that I keep in hand. I mean, not the most interesting call, but I will actually decide to discard my colonization card, because now I don't have any more knowledge about colonies coming. Hopefully with going for a defensive army at the next turn I won't be in danger of an aggression, and I just wanted to keep an event that I can seed for Nostradamus. I wanted to keep the defensive army tactic. And with me soon maybe being able to actually go for 2 defensive army tactics, I also wanted to keep that spy in hand, because I'm a bit low in science, and the additional science from the spy certainly could be very worthwhile for me. I could also consider the revolutionary idea, but again it felt just a bit too expensive, and I felt like increasing my population and taking Frugality is worth more for me. Martha Bashir doesn't see it. I was happy about that. It could mean that I have some more time to set up for those heavy H2 strength events. He will go for an upgrade to Rifleman, plays the revolutionary idea, develops the warfare, is now actually the strongest, and then takes the opera in hand. Isn't willing to commit science into the printing press. With Gutenberg he could have done it, or did he still use an activation? He could actually go for another activation, so no need to do that. The historic territory 1 is revealed, everyone is willing to pass, even Lcfyx. Maybe thinks, I guess, having 4 colonies is good enough. Maybe it's now more important to just play it safe and keeping the units, so he also passes here. Lech develops the strategy this turn, goes up to 15 strength. Both Martin and Lech have seeded one of those big strength events, so they know of course as well that it could be worthwhile building up some strengths. Lech at the next turn can maybe start going for Rifleman with the Patriotism. He actually goes for the Eiffel Tower here, which is interesting, but I think he was the one who seeded the new deposits, which is now the last event in the deck. And so with the new deposits he maybe has enough resources to go for the Eiffel Tower, and maybe also needs something to invest those resources into. And he actually builds already a stage of that wonder. Now it's Lcfyx's turn, he doesn't see it. Goes for the constitutional monarchy. The theocracy, I think, has done something for him. He was able to win a lot of colonies, but now he, with the Acropolis discount, decides to make a switch. Goes for the constitutional monarchy. I think that's probably quite an improvement for him. And this turn he can go for the Suez Canal, and he can increase his population, build a warrior, and so if he has a good colony, might get a very big boost. Of course, it might actually take a while until he can finish it, at least from his perspective, but what he doesn't have knowledge about is that the new deposits are coming. Still not enough to finish it at the next turn, but maybe he can finish it in 2 turns. There's maybe also the chance that he might get this Engineering Genius 2 that is coming down the road. Now it's my turn. None of those strength events is on top yet, because the new deposits are left. With that I can put another strength events in the deck, the Crusades. I seeded, the new deposits are revealed. Everyone apart from Lcfyx gains 6 resources. There is now the row of death here. 3 strength events here, 2 strength events here, and this event that was seeded by Lech is actually the crime wave, so another strength event. So I know now that it's now very worthwhile investing a bit into strength, which is certainly an advantage. Certainly a situation where you can see that gathering that information with Nostradamus can give you quite an advantage, actually. I developed the cannons. I certainly want to build one and reveal the tactic, making me the strongest. And there's one problem that I'm having here. It will also influence a little bit the end of my turn. I will first of all use the Frugality and increase my population twice. I thought about variations where I don't use it, maybe keeping it in hand so that I can still use it for Maria Theresa, but those turns just didn't play very nicely, so I just increased my population twice, which will also give me the possibility of maybe putting another worker into the military. If I should do this, we will discuss at the end of my turn. But with the remaining civil actions, I think I have to take the additional signs of the breakthrough here, and I also still have one civil action left, and can maybe grab the cavalryman so that I'm a bit better prepared for H3 tactics, also potentially taking it away from Martin Pêcheur, who is now quite dependent on maybe the last copy of cannons. And yeah, I could just now not build another unit, and the thing is, I have to expect that the age will end before my next turn. If I now don't commit to another military unit, then I don't have any uprising issue. If I commit to another population, then I have an uprising to another military unit, and I have an uprising issue, but I'm missing one science to get the organized religion going. And yeah, now the question is, should I build this unit or not? It was a close one for me, but I actually decided to go for this unit because it just makes it more likely that I maybe win some of those strength events. Martin Pêcheur can potentially upgrade a lot of those. Lech can go for some rifleman upgrades, so it can certainly make a difference. And yeah, there are actually some ways, actually quite a lot of different ways, how I can get that additional science for the organized religion. One way that I was really looking at is Maria Theresa. Martin Pêcheur also doesn't have a leader yet, but I'm not sure if he is in a position where he really wants to take her for 3. He could do it, but I was hoping he might not, but it might also be that Maria Theresa is just not revealed at his turn, and that I at my next turn will be able to go for her, and with being able to increase my population once, I could get one science out of her, which is just enough to go for the organized religion. The problem is, if Maria Theresa stays on 3 civil actions at my turn, then I don't have enough civil actions to take her for 3, elect her, Nostradamus is gone, so I don't get the civil action back, develop the organized religion, upgrade an organized religion. No, actually, wait a minute. And I need to increase my population, of course, for the science. Not to get a free unit, but just for the science for Maria Theresa. So that could be a problem, that I might not have the civil actions to do this, actually. So that made me think maybe I should not commit to this unit, but I could also get help by the strength events. Cold War is in the deck, which could give me 6 additional signs. There's a chance that if international negotiations is revealed before my next turn, a player could give me additional signs. Probably not, as science is the thing that I probably need the most, but there's a chance. And if the refugees are revealed, then I win it, then I also can fix my uprising just by increasing my population another time. So I thought there are a lot of ways, and there's even another way, because maybe, for example, Lcfyx, who wants to save up some science for the Suez Canal, I guess he has to weigh if he can just build some more units, but maybe there could be a chance that one of the opponents is a bit vulnerable, so a small chance there's also that maybe the spy could be successful. And with that, I just wanted to increase my chances to get rewards out of those events at the cost of potentially having an uprising issue and the danger that I might not have the science to go for the organized religion. Martin Pêcheur seeds. And I was relieved to see the Cold War is revealed immediately, so I won't have any uprising issues at the next turn, because I can now develop the organized religion. Martin Pêcheur goes for the selective breeding, takes scientific method with Gutenberg, could have also developed a printing press maybe, but also it's maybe rather better to save up science maybe for an H3 government form. Maybe again just takes this card to score the 2 culture with him. He upgrades a farm, upgrades another farm, and also upgrades 1 unit, and upgrades another unit. He was the one who seeded a Cold War. Interesting that he nonetheless was willing to seed the event that he put into the deck. I can of course seed it's the arms industry, which is a solid event for him, but it's the question if he should have risked the Cold War here, but maybe he thought if he gets stronger, Lech might just get stronger again, and maybe he thought if he pushes, maybe Lech thinks that there is not the most threatening strength events and pushes as well, so maybe he just took the risk, but now that the Cold War is out, he knows nothing about the other events, and maybe is now, instead of getting even stronger, just went for those 2 farm upgrades to get his food production going. Lech doesn't see it, instead he gets 4 additional strength. He sees the refugees, he knows that there's a big strength event still coming, and Lcfyx, interestingly, is willing to accept this pact. Lech this turn finishes the Eiffel Tower, plays the Patriotism, and with that he has now just enough resource left to go for 2 upgrades. Takes the reserves and the efficient upgrade to get some more resources. Lcfyx will take the cannons, meaning Martin Pêcheur for now is stuck on just playing with Rifleman. He takes the cannons for 2, takes the Engineering Genius, which will be a very big help for him to finish the Suez Canal. He increases his population, builds the cannon, increases his population again, and he has now just enough resources with the Engineering Genius to finish the Suez Canal at the next turn, and he also got stronger a bit. However, some colonization cards already got used, and he would need 1 to defend against an aggression, so at my turn I thought, do I just want to try it? But I will miss out on an H3 draw, and also I will at my next turn go for the second defensive army tactic. I thought maybe I have a better chance at the turn after to actually get a successful spy going, so at my turn I skipped the politics action. And also sadly, as you can see, Maria Theresa was the last card in the deck, so she is in a row at my turn, but it would be quite expensive to take her. What I certainly want to do now is to develop the organized religion, fix my uprising issues by going for an upgrade, and then also building a swordsman to again get strongest and be prepared for refugees and the international negotiations. Now I have 4 civil actions left, and it's the question what to do with those. The cards that are available for 1 civil actions I all don't really need. Maybe I could take an efficient upgrade, maybe I could take the architecture for 2, also not that great. I at the end thought that it's probably just best to go for a leader already this turn, just to have those civil actions already out of the way, so that when the first H3 cards will be in the row, I guess 2 of them are already in the row, but if there are a lot more will be in the row at the next turn, that I have some civil actions already freed up. And I thought about going for James Watt because he is available a bit cheaper. I can maybe increase my population already. I know that there's no Happy Face related event coming. And if I get lucky and there's an early oil, James Watt could just do a lot. But at the end I decided to go for Maria Theresa. She's offering me some guaranteed value. It's of course expensive to take her, but I potentially can already use her additional resources at the next turn, and one of the events is refugees, so with electing her right now, I might actually get an additional science and culture out of the refugees if I should win it. So it's not ideal, but I thought maybe it could be worthwhile just having my lead already going, and then potentially also profiting even more from the refugees. I get some draws here. I actually draw 2 colonization cards. H3 starts how H1 has started. Martin Pêcheur takes the rockets. Could have maybe also considered denying the rockets, but we can also see that it would have just failed very heavily. In a 4-player game, you have to be very careful with doing something like this. The rockets, of course, will now allow Martin Pêcheur to go for the defensive army tactic, so that is now quite strong, but he is luckily still 1 strength behind me. He then takes the Justice system in hand. Lech sees, he knows that the refugees are coming, but maybe also doesn't see an easy way of getting stronger than me, and so the refugees are actually revealed. I get an additional population and I get some even more value out of Maria. Lcfyx will now lose a population. Lech develops the cannons, takes the selective breeding. The efficient upgrade is still on low food production, but it can now start going for some upgrades, and with the reserves and the frugality also will get some additional population out. Builds a cannon and copies the defensive army tactic to be now at 28 strength. Luckily for me, he is not overtaking me in strength here. Lcfyx seeds and the international negotiations are revealed. If that event would have been revealed during Lech's turn, it could have hit Lcfyx quite heavily, because Lech might have just taken resources away from him, which would have delayed the Suez Canal by another turn, which would have been some enormous value lost. But I don't want to say he got lucky, because losing the refugee is of course also not that great, but he maybe didn't get the worst out, or the worst outcome here, with the international negotiations being revealed at his turn, and now he will pay some food to me. I guess that's the thing that he can just spare the most. For me it's actually relatively nice, and I can get maybe an additional population out with Maria Theresa thanks to that. Lcfyx this turn can finally finish the Suez Canal, does it with developing the architecture, finishes the Suez Canal, and the colony that he has is the autonomous territory, so an enormously strong Suez Canal here. He gets 4 science out of that, has now even more civil and military actions, and is now playing with 8 resource production actually. He then also takes the patriotism in Churchill, so makes sure to have a lot of resources in hand for the military, because Martin Pecheur, if he just goes for another rocket, which he could potentially do if he gets a yellow card that gives him resources from the row, then yeah, Lcfyx soon might actually need a lot of strength. However, he seems to have maybe no tactic, at least it looks like it, otherwise he might have revealed it. And with that, he is now quite a bit behind in strength, and yeah, I think now it certainly is worth a shot going for that spy. And I was hoping that it will be successful, because, and you see that it is successful, the additional science will actually be quite valuable for me, because it will allow me to go for the democracy at my turn. Which I will also do. I thought about going for the military theory instead, because if I go for the democracy, after developing it, I'm very low in science again, meaning if I go for that, I think I also kinda need to take the revolutionary idea after developing it, meaning I don't take the military theory, but Martin Pecheur is already warfare, and I was hoping that with having the defensive army tactic, hopefully I am safe enough for now, even though Martin Pecheur is looking somewhat threatening. So I take the democracy, I do think that just gives me a very nice boost, I develop it, take the revolutionary idea, I increase my population, and then to get out of corruption and also use the 1 additional resource from Maria, I build another cannon, also making me the strongest for the uncertain borders and the crusades that are coming. Then at the end of my turn we can maybe take a look at the overview. We are now already 1 turn in H3. I was happy about my 1 draws, it's the impact of population, so something that I can actually use. And when we take a look at the overview, we can see that Lcfyx and I have a clear culture lead here. And Lcfyx, thanks to finishing the Suez Canal, certainly is also not that much behind economically, but he is still quite a bit behind in strength. So it will now, for him, depend a lot on how heavily he gets hit by maybe aggressions or wars. If he can stabilize, then he is certainly in the game, especially with his big culture income. But if he gets disrupted too heavily, it could be bad for him, but certainly he has put himself into a very respectable position here. Lech is a bit behind in culture, he has lots of civil actions, that is his big advantage, but his production is somewhat mediocre. It's solid, but nothing extraordinary. He won't have the most population available, so he might have a solid game, but it's the question if he has, for example, enough advantages in his economy compared to me in order to make up for the culture gap that we are having. Now that I've gone for the democracy, I have only 1 civil action less, or production somewhat similar. Maria is also giving me some additional production basically. I get bonuses out of the Silk Road that are not represented here, so I thought that I don't have a bad position here. I'm ahead in the military for now. I have this I have almost a culture lead, only slightly being behind Lcfyx. And then we have Martin Pecheur, who, same as Lech, doesn't have that strong of an economy to maybe easily make up for the culture gap, but what he has, what Lech doesn't have, is some military potential. With 1 more rocket and 1 more upgrade from warriors to riflemen, he can go for a lot of strength, so he can maybe do something with that. And yeah, but I was feeling I have a solid position, but I need to make sure to stay competitive in strength, and yeah, now it will be interesting to see what the other players will try in order to yeah, overcome that deficit. And Martin Pecheur decides to go for a military heavyweight, and that is possible thanks to the Harvard College. He will increase his population, takes the military build-up, can play it for 6 resources, builds a rocket, upgrades a warrior to rifleman, is now at 41 strength. However, he would have an uprising now, deleting something would be very bad, so he is using Chaplin here as a military leader. Isn't getting any culture from him, but what he is getting are the happy faces, and those are very relevant for him here. And then to maybe at some point be able to get some culture out of him, he takes the movies in hand here, has already the opera, but the movies are even better. Lech tries an aggression against Lcfyx, but withdrawing that aggression he also cancels the promise of military protection pact, so he doesn't have 28, the same as I did, but only 24, and then Lcfyx can actually defend against that blunder. Lech takes the Air Forces, takes the Manhattan Project, takes the Engineering Genius, actually takes Corruption in order to do all of those things. But he is now that the pact got cancelled. And it's also a bit interesting that he was willing to let that pact be cancelled. Um, yeah, he is now a bit behind in strength and is doing a lot in order to make sure that he hopefully will be fine. Now it will be very interesting to see if Lcfyx can respond. He didn't reveal a tactic at a turn before, which could be an indicator that he maybe just doesn't have some, but that would be quite bad for him. He takes the professional spots here, maybe to just have a fix for the happy faces, which he very much might need when he loses now a bunch of yellow tokens. He increases his population twice, plays the wave of nationalism, builds a cannon, builds another cannon, plays the patriotism, and builds another cannon going up to 24 strength. But what he doesn't do is revealing a tactic. If he would have had more artillery, he could have built a knight instead of the rockets, and he would be at something like 34 strength, I think. So it's quite a bit unfortunate that he is now the player who doesn't have any nice tactic to work with. And that's quite unfortunate for him. Also fortifications, even an outdated Napoleonic army, all would be fine. Even an outdated modern army, he could have an outdated entrenchments tactic, but of course H3 draws, he didn't have that many. So yeah, but with a tactic, he might be a lot more competitive, but now he is quite a bit behind, lose a bunch of yellow tokens, and the bad thing for him is that at the next gen he actually doesn't have enough science to develop the professional sports, so he might have some very bad uprising issues. I have drawn a decent impact, or even a good one for me. I had impact of population, I will push, the uncertain borders are revealed, another yellow token is stolen from from Lcfyx to Marta Pêcheur. I this turn will build an additional religion, fixing my happy faces, also getting a bit of additional culture production. And it also gets me out of corruption, which is very relevant, because I was looking at the red cross, but I was also thinking just taking it this turn would be too greedy. I first want to see how this thing with Marta Pêcheur going for a bit of strength continues. And I really want to have the reserves, maybe some other resource-giving yellow cards. But I thought, now that I'm out of corruption with building this religion, maybe I can just save up some food. That also makes it that I produce an additional food, thanks to not going into 4 consumption, which makes a difference actually between being able to go for 2 populations at the next turn, or still only being at the 1 that I would have gotten if I increased my population now. And so I thought that should be quite nice, keeping the option of the red cross alive and also potentially just getting an additional population out in case I need it. And then I just took some card, the urban growth, the reserves, the satellites, the movies, and then I played the revolutionary idea with the Silk Road bonus. Those 2 yellow cards should be very nice for me. Satellites is nice for a bunch of impacts, could give me a bit of strength if I need it, and the movies just allow myself to have something to invest into to produce some culture in case I need that at some point. Luckily I have drawn those 2 defense cards. It's actually quite good for me here, because I can now end my turn without being in danger of an aggression. Maybe Marta Pêcheur again would rather target someone else, but it's certainly possible that he could try one against me. I even draw another colonization card. Marta Pêcheur, after having already gotten a yellow token out of the uncertain borders, will steal another 4, which it looks really harsh when we take a look now at Lcfyx civilization. That's, yeah, as I said, how strong his position is heavily depends on if he gets disrupted and hit by something. I got hit by something very bad here, so now he has quite some troubles, but still has quite a bit of a culture lead. Marta Pêcheur seeds, the Crusades are revealed, he gets some cultures from Lcfyx, has enough science to go for the democracy, increases his population, takes the revolutionary idea, builds another rocket to be even stronger, maybe can pull off an aggression potentially at the next turn, and also takes the efficient upgrade. Lech seeds, opens the crime wave, I'm not part of that. Again, a bit of a lucky timing for me, because Lech will now finish the Manhattan Project, so after his turn I might have gotten hit by that. He finishes the Manhattan Project, takes the computers for 3 interestingly, the reserves, and then the efficient upgrade. There are still Einstein and Steve Jobs in the deck, there might be Nobel Prizes, so the computers certainly could be interesting. Lcfyx seeds, the arms industry is revealed. I had knowledge about this, but I couldn't really prepare myself, so sadly I'm not getting any resources out of it. Lcfyx can increase his population once, actually destroys both mines. That's of course really not great, but thanks to the Suez Canal he actually still has 5 resource production per turn. And then he decides to, first of all, build a religion, and interestingly takes the modern infantry. Maybe he has drawn an H3 tactic that he can use at some point, or maybe just to be able to copy the defensive army tactic. Doesn't take the air forces here. But yeah, probably the modern infantry is maybe the more important card, even though he could also hope for maybe some outdated H3 tactics potentially with the air force, but he is maybe also not set up ideally for them. But now that means that he leaves the air forces available for me, which I think is a very big help for me. Maybe because of denial reasons he could have taken the air forces and maybe hoping that the modern infantry will still be around. Maybe he can get lucky and draw the outdated entrenchments tactic and then go for 2 air forces, which at least would have give him some somewhat solid amount of strength. And he would also deny one of the air force from his opponents, maybe making it that those are a bit less good prepared for strength. For me, certainly it makes a very big difference whether I get the air forces or not. I can take the red cross here, and if I don't play too greedily, I think I can take it without being at too much risk of getting hit by some stuff. I could, of course, just build 4 steps, but I need to take the air forces here. I could still actually build 4 steps if I would like to, and I considered it, because I can take the engineering, develop it, and then build 4 steps with it, but then I don't have enough science to go for air forces at the next turn. I actually am not in danger of an aggression, thanks to having drawn a lot of defense cards, but I would be in danger of a war because I can't develop the air forces, and also I think I can't play it that greedily, but I still wanted to take the red cross. There is a solid amount of colonies in the game, and I might be able to at least get 3 steps out of it because Lcfyx doesn't have enough food to build one. I will develop the air forces, increase my population, build an air force, take the urban growth. That wasn't a clear take, because there's actually also Marlene Dietrich, and with the movies I might build some movies, and of course she is also quite useful for the military potentially, but I thought about the military and thought maybe she doesn't make a big difference for me here, and if I maybe elect her for the last 2 turns and maybe get 1, potentially 2 movies, it's just not that much culture that I'm getting, and I was rather hoping that maybe I could get Einstein or Steve Jobs. Einstein might be taken away by Lech, but Steve Jobs could maybe just produce me quite a bit more culture than Marlene Dietrich will be. Maybe I will regret it if I could have used her military ability nicely, but I thought I should be relatively safe for now without her, now that I've gotten the air forces. And with my 3 military actions, I have now enough to threaten to go for 2 more swordsmen and an air force, which hopefully should make me somewhat safe for now. And yeah, so I just ended up taking the urban growth, which might also allow me to potentially go for an additional movie. I draw some cards here, another defense cards. I actually, as you can see, discarded a defense card in order to keep a war. Maybe that could still be a possibility if Lcfyx stays very weak. And Martha Becher is actually going for a war with culture already now. Gets the military theory, can develop it. Builds a step of the Red Cross. He could have increased his population, but he is willing to destroy that lab in order to get the step of the Red Cross, builds another rocket, and he has drawn the positional army tactic, so quite unfortunate for Lcfyx. And Martha Becher might now be able to steal a bunch of culture, but with Lcfyx now having gotten hit that heavily, maybe he also doesn't see a lot of hope for him, especially now that he also gets hit by another blunder, and there's maybe also the danger that he might just resign. Lech goes for the air forces, builds one, upgrades a farm to selective breeding, and it takes the United Nations, which actually gives him 20 points, thanks to having a lot of wonders already. Now it's Lcfyx's turn, let's see how he will defend, and he actually doesn't at all, he just resigns here, and now if he doesn't have any tactic to work with, now that he also got blundered, a lot of culture will be stolen, he is really badly prepared for impacts, and if he then is also behind in culture, I think it's a fine position to resign here, as I don't think there's really a lot of hope left. And so he resigns, which I think is good news for me, because it means that Martha Becher doesn't get a lot of culture out of this war. It also has one particular drawback for myself, but I will mention that as soon as it is relevant. This turn will start the turn by taking the revolutionary idea. I think I kinda need to take it because Mata Peshur is here quite threatening, and his potential strength is actually increasing if I let that revolutionary idea stay on the row, because he has the Harvard College and he could take the revolutionary idea, play it, take the air forces, play it, and then go for another positional army tactic. Or is he actually not having the civil actions to do that? I thought I calculated it, but now that I'm thinking about it, I guess yes, he needs 3 to take and play that, 4 to take and play that, and it is just 1 civil action left to get a population or destroy something and build the air force. So I wanted to take that. It could be a nice card for myself, but it also makes it that Mata Peshur's strength potential is just quite a bit weaker. So I take that, and then I thought about just playing the reserves, now finishing the red cross. The thing is, if I do that, I'm actually quite vulnerable, and I don't think there's any reason to play it greedily here. Even if I now miss out on another 2 steps of the red cross, I will still have a culture lead during my last 2 turns, or even only the last turn. Maybe I can build some movies, get some culture production going, and I was hoping, also with having already 1 solid impact in there, that I still have a good position, even if I don't completely finish the red cross now. And I think it's a lot more important to make sure that I just make myself safe from war, and not having the reserves available in order to play them for resources and missing out on either patriotism or reserves would just be too much and makes a very big difference. If I just go for finishing the red cross, I would actually not even have enough, I would even not threaten enough to reach the current strength for Mata Peshur, so and that I would just be way too vulnerable. So I increased my population with Maria Theresa, which at least scores me another culture and science. So I miss out on some steps maybe, but I get that going instead. And what I also get, which I wouldn't have gotten if I would have just finished the red cross, is Einstein. I can take Einstein here. If I don't take him, it might be that Lech takes Steve Jobs, and it could be that Marie Curie isn't doing really anything for me, so getting now Einstein, and with having taken the revolutionary idea, I maybe will actually be able to get 6 culture out of him. So I take him, and then I take the reserves. I thought about the patriotism, especially because I have a war in hand. I could play the patriotism with the Silk Road bonus, declare the war, build a swordsman and an air force. Maybe I should take the patriotism here, but I felt like I don't need to do this war. There could be some surprising stuff happening. Maybe Lech has the ideal tactic. Maybe he still gets the tanks, can go for modern army. And I just thought I want to have all the resources available for my peaceful projects. Just want to finish the red cross at the next turn, go for some movies. And I was hoping that that actually might be enough. I keep all of my defense cards. I even discard the war now that I haven't taken the patriotism. I don't need it. And for some reason, it's the game of drawing a lot of colonization cards for me. I had 4 of from the H1 ones in hand at the beginning. Now I have 4 of the H3 ones in hand. I've actually discarded 1 of the H3 ones already, so that's kind of crazy. And also quite useful because it makes me safe from an aggression. Mata Peshur is going for a war of culture against Lech. He goes for the professional sports, builds a step of the red cross, which again means that he has to destroy some stuff, but he's willing to do it, destroys another lab, another farm, builds a rocket, builds another rocket, going up to 81 strength. Lech, at his turn, first of all H4 will start, and he offers the military alliance to me, which I will accept. If I calculated it correctly, then if he should have the entrenchments tactic, he could now even win the war by a very small bit, but even if that should happen, I think I would still be fine with having accepted this pact, because Mata Peshur is just a bit closer in strength to me, and it's also just more likely that maybe Lech doesn't have the tactic available and that he will lose the war anyway, and then I reduce the amount of culture that Mata Peshur is getting. Lech goes for Marie Curie here, builds a cannon, upgrades 2 computers, which gives him now also 3 additional strength, takes the reserves, copies the positional army tactic, is now at 67, builds a step of the red cross, and thanks to having taken the reserve, is still having enough resources to finish the United Nations at the next turn. At my turn I can't really use my politics phase, and another reason to accept this is of course that even if maybe Lech wins the war and I realize that it is an outcome that I don't prefer, I can just cancel the pact again, as I don't have anything to do anyway, so don't even have to think about accepting it basically. Now, this turn I will start by playing the revolutionary idea with the Silk Road bonus. to then play the reserves without the Silk Road bonus, because I wouldn't have been able to use the additional food nicely, while the additional science actually makes a difference. I finished the red cross, and now we see it's only a small thing, it's not that I want to complain, but it's rather an interesting thing to note. The resignation of Lcfyx has also consequences for me here, because I only score 1 culture out of the red cross. I was a bit surprised to see it, because when I thought about taking it, I thought, oh, there are 6 colonies in play. Even if I don't get all of the steps, it's still a decent amount of culture that I'm getting. But with the resignation of Lcfyx, his colonies are also removed from play, it seems, and I'm only getting 1 culture when finishing the red cross here. Then, at the moment, I would be in danger of an aggression. Martin Pecheur would even be able to go for an guaranteed aggression against me, so I do think I need to build another swordsman here. That also gets me out of corruption. I'm at 66 strength. I can also develop the satellites. At the next turn, I will either go for multimedia or movies. I can now already get the strength, because I would have been able to defend against an aggression from Martin Pecheur even without the strength from the satellites. But the thing is, I need to discard one of those cards now. I would have needed 3 of those cards to defend against Martin Pecheur without the strength from the satellites. And then I've used up all of my cards, and I would be 1 strength behind Lech, and he would actually go for a guaranteed aggression, despite me only being 1 strength behind him. So that would have been funny, but not something that I want to see happening. So I decided to develop the satellites here. And with the last 2 civil actions, I take the multimedia under modern infantry. Modern infantry I don't really need, but the multimedia could be interesting. If my opponents maybe see it, I could consider going for the multimedia instead of the movies. I have enough resources with those urban growths and the reserves to build 2 of those expensive urban buildings. So if I go for 2 multimedias instead of the 2 movies, I'm missing out on 2 culture. But the multimedia significantly increases what I gain from the impact of balance, and could also shift my position in for the impact of science. So I thought it could be worthwhile the next turn having those 2 options available. Martin Pecheur steals 19 culture from Lech, so Lech is now quite a bit behind. He also goes for an armed intervention against Lech. Maybe if he wants to play for the win, maybe he should go against me, but I only need 2 cards. I don't know how many Lech would have needed. We can quickly check that. You also only would have needed 2. But maybe also Martin Pecheur wasn't that confident that he can finish before me. Lech, if he has United Nations, gets good impacts, could maybe do some stuff. Impact of science would be quite big potentially if I go for multimedia. So maybe he just rather wants to play for safe 2nd place, or maybe counted the amount of draws. But I think I didn't have that many draws. I just got lucky with drawing that many. So defense cards. So yeah, maybe it's just for him a question of whether he wants to play for 2nd or 1st place. He develops the professional sports, plays the endowment for 3 culture. And did the endowment maybe have to do something with the decision? No, I think I would still be in front of him if he steals it from me. He builds the professional sports that helps him for some impacts, but when we take a look at the impacts, there are not that many in there. 1 is from me, the impact of population, the other one is from Lcfyx, who resigned, so for the moment not really that many impacts in there. Let's see what Lech maybe will do with the United Nations. He doesn't see it. Builds a religion, finished the United Nations, and is actually now revealing an impact. The impact of architecture, which makes it that he gets a bit closer to Martin Pecheur, also gets +1 against me. It's interesting that he didn't seed it, meaning that either he's maybe expecting something bad out of the events and wasn't willing to risk it, or he, of course, at my turn I will increase my score quite a bit. So maybe didn't want to do this, but I think maybe the player who has better chances on catching is probably Martin Pecheur, so maybe it could be worthwhile for him to get the 3 culture from seeding. Maybe he also thought his chances to catch any one of us is maybe so low that he just doesn't want to influence the final standings between me and Martin that much. Maybe that's also potentially a thought from him. I, as you can see, will go for the movies because there's only 1 unknown impact in there, so I don't think it makes a lot of sense to play around the impacts, especially because impact of balance and science both aren't really the impacts that you would expect from Lcfyx at the time when he has seeded it. So I just go for movies, build 1, build another one, and then I can end my turn, and I have a significant lead before Marta Pecheur. The one impact that I have knowledge about is even a good one, and I don't think there's any impact that would allow Marta Pecheur to catch up here, and so I should be able to win this game. The first impact is the impact of colonies, which is of course a one that makes sense for Lcfyx to seed. Now it gives me +3 against my opponents, and then the other impact is the impact of population, giving me +6 against Montan, +8 against Lech. And with that, I am actually able to win this game at the end. Marta Pecheur finishes second, Lech third, and Lcfyx got a bit unlucky with not having any nice tactic to work with and has now resigned earlier on. Yeah, was an interesting game. I was not sure how I exactly won it. I do think Nostradamus maybe played a big part here. First of all, I was able to seed every turn with him. He was one of the reasons, maybe also together with the Silk Road, why I actually had a somewhat significant culture lead before Lech and Marta Pecheur. And his strength allowed me to focus more on economy. I got this mine upgrade in instead of committing to the knights, which would have had quite drastic consequences with then drawing the defensive army tactic. That was possible thanks to Nostradamus. And then he of course also gave me that very big knowledge about the very big stack of very influential strength events, which made it that I then was able to win a lot of those. Sometimes I also got a bit lucky with the timing, but I do think Nostradamus really did a lot for me in this game. And so I then was in a position where my economy was not really that much weaker compared to Lech and Marta Pecheur, but I had a culture lead. I of course luckily also got a nice tactic for myself. Those are probably the reasons why I at the end was in a position to win this game. Also, if Lcfyx maybe would have taken the air forces instead of the modern infantry, and if I wouldn't have gotten the last copy, things could have also gone quite bad for me. So that was another reason or another thing that maybe went in my favor here. And but of course I'm happy to win this game. Winning out of the last position is sometimes not that easy in 4-player games, so I'm certainly happy about this win. Marta Pecheur went for an interesting game. Great Wall plus Forbidden City, went for Gutenberg instead of Jan Žižka, paid a big price for the Harvard College, but it's all came somewhat together, and he went for quite a big military push then in H3, but it was not enough for him to win the game. At least he gets the second position out of it, and Lech finishes third. And now we can also take a look at the standings and see how things are there. And there has also been a game finished where I wasn't involved, and the result is actually quite good for me, because my Yondor was able to win a 3-player game against Wolves and Fanta Black. So Fanta Black getting a loss, I'm getting a win out of a 4-player game. So out of the sudden, after at the beginning of the video I was still 4 points behind, I am now 2 points even in the lead before Fanta Black with the same amount of games finished. So now things are actually looking quite good for me here. But there are still 2 games to come, and one of them will also be against Fanta Black, which could end up being a very deciding game. We have now a bit of a lead towards the other players. Marta Pecheur is a bit behind. My Yondor is now with the win actually is coming a bit closer again, but still is a bit behind. They are not that much behind it. They don't have chances to maybe finish first, but there's a bit of a lead, and if I maybe get some solid results out of the last 2 games, I might have a chance here to win the group and promote to Grandmaster. Then for Lech and Lcfyx, of course, the result wasn't that ideal. Both of them are now a bit behind on the last and second last position, so they need some good results now, ideally at least 1 or maybe even 2 wins to stay in the league. Alright, then I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch, and thank you for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.